The King Center. Yes, Bernice King, daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., has now weighed in on the Cop City saga. Let's put up a picture full mass. Bernice King happens to be a good friend of mine. We talk off record quite often. And she has now joined the conversation officially. She's been part of the conversation unofficially. And she has one request through the King Center: allow the people to vote. Allow the people to vote. I'm going to give you some background. Now, first, let me remind you of the, let's just say, recording that we broke right here on Indisputable of Atlanta officers allegedly talking about the raid against non-profit board members who were bailing people out of jail. Here it is.
Anybody else think that warrant that they served today and the arrest are just guaranteed shenanigans next Monday and Tuesday?
Yep. Actually, maybe tomorrow. I think they're supposed to have their first appearance tomorrow.
I'm here for all of it. Matter of fact, just do it all June. Trying to get my backyard done.
I mean, it could go the opposite way. I mean, we've been putting pressure on them and attacking them from all different angles. At some point, they've got to give up. I mean, especially if we're going after all the money. It could shut them down.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. Like, couldn't they wait until like Wednesday of next week to do this? Is that when you're off? No, that's when all this, the finance committee would have been done. Would have been done by Wednesday. Okay. Oh no, they had to send a message. I get it, but I mean, think about it. If they had just defeated the thing in council, which, they're going to vote for the money and everything's going to go through, and then the coup de grace is, right after you failed 2 days in a row, we serve a warrant on you.
True, that's what they did the last go around. I guess they wanted to, go ahead and get it over with. I guess they thought it was going on the offensive.
According to the anonymous individual who submitted this to Indisputable, you're listening to 3 APD officers discuss among themselves via radio communications their knowledge of a targeted attempt to dissuade support for the Stop Cop City movement. So much so that these nonprofit organizers who routinely organize bail funds in the city of Atlanta and outside of the city were specifically targeted. They were raided, homes kicked in order to send a message. If you remember my original reporting, I highlighted that the judge who had to set bond in the case said this looked to be a violation of free speech. He told the government this does not pass the smell test to him. There's more. The King Center and other groups have now joined with activists and calling on the city of Atlanta to put the planned Public Safety Training Center, AKA Cop City, up for a vote. In a statement on Monday, the nonprofit, which is run by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, Bernice King, said Atlanta leadership was not transparent with the public in its decision concerning the development of the $90 million, 85-acre training center, which opponents call Cop City, calling the city's actions a misstep and a missed opportunity. She's completely correct. The King Center also argued that Atlanta leaders are not considering the hundreds of voices opposing the facility. One of those voices we interviewed right here on Indisputable. His name is Marlon Counts. And Marlon Counts was one who was arrested, home kicked in. We also interviewed Reverend Kiana Jones, who lives in East Atlanta, where the development is happening. Her grandmother lives in that area as well. She has roots in the community. See, I want you to understand what happened here. The city of Atlanta did not ask East Atlanta, can they do this? Let me contextualize it properly for those who live in Metro Atlanta. You have an area in Metro Atlanta called Buckhead. If there's going to be something in Buckhead, they don't ask the city overall, they ask the residents of Buckhead. Do you want this here, Buckhead residents? And the Buckhead residents will respond. And typically they get exactly what they want. But in this case, they decided not to ask Mama them in East Point, but bulldozed ahead anyway. I'm going to remind you of the sermon that was preached at the Atlanta City Council. Kiana Jones, we had on the program after this sermon went viral. Here it is.
This Atlanta City Council. My name is Reverend Kiana Jones, and I stand here before you as a member of the Faith Coalition to Stop Cop City. And I'm looking at each one of your faces, and I really want to understand how it is that you asked people to vote for you and then ignored their voices. How it is that you feel okay with yourself lauding Abel Mabel, who had a lot to say about treating people right, who had a lot to say about the words of the Bible that many of you like to quote. Well, let me remind you of something. Be not deceived, for God is not mocked. That whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So understand this, that the sins of the father will be visited on the children. It has happened time and again. So it may not happen to you, but what about your child? What about their children? What about their children's children's children? What will your legacy be? You so-called legacies of black misleadership sitting up here on this council. Let me tell you something. Representation is not enough when you don't represent the people who elected you. The people came out and spoke clearly. And let me go to the Bible one more again and say that we are here as clergy to cry loud and spare not. We are opening our mouths and crying with a loud voice to say that we don't want Cop City. I live in East Atlanta. I don't want Cop City. I got 5 black children. I don't want Cop City. I like breathing clean air. I don't want Cop City. I want to drink clean water. I don't want Cop City. I don't want Black Hawk helicopters landing around the corner from my house. I don't want Cop City.
The Atlanta Solidarity Fund is an organization in the city of Atlanta, organized after the killing of Rashad Brooks, because protesters went to the street. I was one of them. I helped organize as well as coordinated bond money. The group is a righteous group. I remember at about 4 o'clock in the morning, we're at the Fulton County Jail. I handed someone a $100 bill. I said, get you something to eat, go to Waffle House or IHOP or something. They said, no, Doc, put that in the fund too. So when they got raided, I knew good and damn well they were targeted. These folks won't accept money. The home that was raided is falling apart. They all live in that house together to pool their money so that they can have optimal money to contribute to causes. These are people that live what they preach. So they raided them thinking this would stop the movement and momentum. Marlon Couts was one who was arrested. We had him on the program. Here's what he said.
I've been saying when it first happened, when what happened was I woke up to the sound of my front door being broken down by a battering ram. That was the first that I learned that any of this was happening. And when it first happened, I thought that it must be a mistake. It was so surreal, so preposterous of an attack that I thought this, had to be unintentional in some way. But it was far from that, as we've learned since then. Officers, dozens of SWAT officers surrounded the house. They had automatic weapons. They had riot shields. They had come ready for a fight. They were planning to throw flashbang grenades into my living room before we were fortunately able to quickly surrender, be arrested. But this kind of raid is the kind of militarized response that you expect to be sent against a drug kingpin, not the administrators of a nonprofit organization. It's absurd to the point of theatrics, and I think that really is, as that recording suggests, this was intended not as a legitimate law enforcement response. This was intended as a message. It was intended as a threat to us as well as to any other grassroots political organizers in the city, that you are in danger and you are a target if you continue to oppose the agenda of Cop City.
If you recall, the very judge that they had to go in front of after the arrest told the government this looks to be a free speech violation. The government was asking for no bond, saying that these individuals posed a danger to the society. I've called for the city to rip up the contract they currently have. I like members of city council, some of them. I like the mayor. Don't like him enough to turn my back on Mama them. He should have done the right thing from day one. He had the opportunity to. You can engage in contractual breach, pay the penalty. According to the numbers that I saw, that penalty would be less than what you are spending in the overage of this. So let's get back to Bernice King. Despite the ardent opposition shared during public comment and in protest, city leadership and most city council members and Mayor Dickens insist that the majority of residents across districts are in favor of the council's collective decision to use public funding for the project. The letter from the King Center and other groups reads in part, pointing to the copious disagreement about where and how the training center should be built. The King Center says the tension should be addressed by the city through public vote. Quote, in a time of crisis in housing, health, poverty, and justice, if the city of Atlanta intends to use 31 million of public dollars, the responsible and democratic approach is to allow the public to vote on whether this is how their government should spend their money, the letter reads. Now, what is the 31 million? That's the city's responsibility. So that's your taxpayer responsibility. Then you got private companies and you have the police foundation, the Atlanta Police Foundation. They're kicking in a bunch of money too. But then in the final analysis, guess what? It looks like the city of Atlanta is going to pay tens of millions of dollars more than the 31 million that was suggested in the beginning, which by the way, creates an opportunity for, once again, breach of contract. It costs more than we thought. It's called unconscionability, cannot perform based on the new structure of the monetary allowance. Easy. I'm not even finished law school and I know that. They definitely have attorneys that can articulate it. Organizers say they need about 58,203 signatures by August 14th to qualify for the November ballot. I'm going to explain this in a moment. The equivalent of 15% of registered voters of the last city election. But they set the higher goal of 70,000, knowing that some will be disqualified. If that's not reached until late August or September, the referendum wouldn't happen until March, when a competitive GOP presidential primary could turn out conservative voters and hurt its chances. The city also could move forward with construction in the meantime, unless the judge intervenes. The campaign actually got a boost after the US District Judge Mark Cohen ruled that the city had imposed an unlawful requirement that those collecting signatures had to be residents of Atlanta. That's insane. But that was a stipulation placed by the city. A group of people who live in DeKalb County, just outside of the city, sued. The structure itself, the development actually is partly in DeKalb County. It's in DeKalb annexed Atlanta, saying they should be allowed to join the canvassing effort and noting that the planned site for the training center itself is in DeKalb County, unincorporated DeKalb County, outside of the city limits. Now, I want you to understand the city has filed lawsuit after lawsuit to stop the activists, to stop the community concern that is continuing to permeate. They said, oh no, it's a frivolous suit. Oh, they can't do this. They cannot overturn the will of the council. Camden County, Georgia, did it just a couple of years ago. It was upheld by the Georgia Supreme Court that at the end of the day, the citizens have the final say so, period. Now you have case law, regardless of your statutory policy. There's more. Requiring signature gatherers to be residents of the city imposes a severe burden on core political speech and does little to protect the city's interests and self-governance, the judge wrote. The city has offered no specifics as to why permitting non-residential plaintiffs to gather signatures will cause any disruption to the political process. There's more. Organizers have modeled the referendum after a successful effort in coastal Georgia, where Camden County voted overwhelmingly last year to block county officials from building a launch pad for blasting God knows what into space in the middle of their community. They said, hell to the no. Camden County moved forward. The Georgia Supreme Court in February said unanimously they upheld the legality of the Camden County citizen referendum, though it remains an open question whether citizens can veto decision of city governments. So you have an issue of potential reciprocation. Camden is a county government. A city is a municipality. They do have different structural rules, but they should operate in essence basically the same. At the end of the day, they are voted in. They are elected officials. They are engaged in taxation by way of constitutional and statutory dynamics. The citizens should still have the final say. If there was no there, do you think the city would be fighting good-hearted, faith-filled, progressive, thoughtful individuals? No. And it has come to a point now that the actual King Center in the middle of the city is completely flat-footed, 10 toes down, involved. Dear brother, to the mayor, sir, you are losing your way. You are losing your way, dear brother. There's an opportunity here. You told us you were different than the rest. I still believe you are. I know it's tough, man. I've been there. I'm there routinely, actually. Walking away with your integrity. It has its own power and satisfaction. Sharon, thoughts?
Oh, Dr. Richey, I have chills. I have chills about what you've reported. Congratulations on another exclusive that has far-reaching implications. The Atlanta I know and love, and these progressive constituents can lead us out of this. Yep. And they can help other great cities out of this. But what you have described rises to the level, I believe, of Department of Justice interaction. We're on the threshold of that. Conspiracy, civil rights conspiracy, deprivation of rights under color of law. You are right there. You understand the law. I don't have any legal training. This is incredibly serious, and I hope that the mayor, I too believe is a good man, can be pulled from this ditch of deception. This is incredible.
We will bring updates as they develop. Obviously, they have until roughly the 14th to gather the signatures. I think they're going to smash that record. Obviously, there will be another court appeal, unfortunately, by the city.